From Content 360, this is the state of client acquisition. Welcome to the state of client acquisition. This is your host, Michael Johannes. In this podcast, we go down and deep into all aspects of organic B2B client acquisition for coaches, consultants, and small B2B CEOs. And we have a special focus on LinkedIn. Now, we cover the entire acquisition process from offer creation to positioning to content to outbound, social selling, and phone sales. And we want to make this all about you, the listener. So if you have a question, go to stateofclientacquisition.com to submit a question or join us live on the Zoom call, always on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. CET. Today, we kick it off with a guest. His name is Maximilian Saal. He's a sales consultant, and he's been following me for a while and started implementing my free advice and got some pretty outstanding results with it. So we talk about that first. We also go through one of his prospecting conversations line by line to understand the anatomy of social selling, because he's quite a natural in that. I then get into the topic of whether you can use your baby or toddler to further your business. And then we cover your questions, such as what time you should post on LinkedIn to maximize your reach, whether you should focus on your course and group coaching program or keep marketing your done-for-you service, and how to avoid prospects feeling under pressure when you offer them a financial incentive to sign on the dotted line on the phone. So it's a good one, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, so let's start. Max, nice to have you on the podcast. Thank you very much for jumping on. Could you give a quick introduction, please?
Yes, of course. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. First of all, I'm Max from Cologne. I'm just a sales guy, and I help my clients to sell their products and sell their high price products. And I'm doing that for around about 1 year. And yeah, that's kind of like my story of business. I went to a couple of corporate companies, went to a publishing company where I learned all the online marketing stuff, and now I transition into a self-employment and doing sales.
Cool. Awesome. And so the reason why we are on this podcast is because we've been in touch for quite a while now. You've been on my newsletter email list, and you have been following quite a bit what I'm doing, and you just started implementing on and off the advice that I was dispensing. And the other day I got it caught my attention that you had posted a post on LinkedIn where you mentioned that you had that week started 80 conversations, and out of that you had scheduled 3 sales calls, one of which you already had done, and that had converted to a client. So
yes,
I was quite impressed with these numbers, and that's where we got talking.
Yeah, that's totally true. I think my LinkedIn career got kicked off by your email you sent out right before Christmas, where you posted your LinkedIn routine. And I basically took that routine and implemented it. And like 3 or 4 weeks later, I got exactly that result that you just showed.
That's amazing. That's great. Yeah, exactly. And so I always say that you actually don't need to pay me to get results working with me. I think you're going to get there faster, but you were definitely the fastest one to get there without even becoming a customer. So kudos to you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Awesome.
But because of the great content, we have to mention that, because it's basically just not like absorbing all the content, but putting it to action. I think this is really, really important. And what we like to consume so much information every day, and sometimes we just forget to do things.
Absolutely. I think this is probably one of the big distinguishing elements between many different people who do similar things to what I do, namely how do you actually create a durable and lasting routine that actually you execute on the goals. I always say that if you only do these 2 things, one is start 20 conversations every day and conduct the conversations that ensue, and you then also do 1 piece of content every day, and you do that according to the rule book, then you will get results. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
The question is, how can you exactly clear enough time in your diary so that you actually do the work. That is the most important.
Yeah, and yeah, of course. And that's why I do this like every day before I really start my work, because then it's done. Then it's done and I can't forget it. Nothing can like come through my way, and I just execute like 20 outbound reaches and starting conversations and posting stuff, and then the day starts. So
great. Cool. Okay, so what I had planned for this session, Max, is that we go through one of those conversations that you had with, one of those outbound conversations, and we just go through it. We do a little, for the people who don't see us on video, we do a little role play where I read always the person who you were talking to. So you read yourself, I read the other person, and then we do it vice versa. We're going to go through one of my conversations. And yeah, so just so that we see how this actually works. So let me share my screen for those people who are on viewing this on video. Okie doke. So let us start. This is Ben the coach. Could you give us a little bit of some background into how this conversation came about?
Yes, I found a post of, let's call him Ben, on LinkedIn, and I mentioned a former colleague in the comments below because Ben the coach talked about leadership coaching, and my former colleague is also a leadership coach, and we had a conversation about how it's very difficult to describe the monetary value of leadership coaching to a person who, should get a client or who wants to become a client, because like leadership coaching and monetary value is not easy to match. So I put my former colleague in the comment section, and then I switched to a private conversation with Ben the coach.
Awesome. So you read yourself and I read Ben the coach.
Yes. So, hi, Ben. I have a question. The person I mentioned in the comment section of your post has trouble describing the monetary value of his service to his potential clients. He's a coach just like you. So how do you do it?
That's the problem. That's the same problem I have too. I try to use case studies and statistics to emphasize the problem and my solution.
So why don't you use an automated webinar to educate your prospects about this topic?
Didn't think about that before. Thanks for the tip. In December, we had a live webinar with 60 participants though.
And how many clients did you win from 60 participants?
1. So there's definitely room for improvement.
Okay, so do you mind hopping on a call with me and have a chat about that? Maybe I can give you some tips. If not, we just got to know each other a bit better.
Sure. Zoom's okay.
Yeah, so that's basically the conversation that led to a sale. Because in the call itself, we found out that he has kind of trouble describing the service and describing the monetary value. And I'm right now helping him to do just that.
Yeah, exactly. And if people look you up on LinkedIn, this is what you put in your tagline, where you say, I help you to, I help you to, if we translate it, to sell your products that require an explanation. So that's kind of your position.
Yeah. Right. And often they're high priced as well. So it's like one of the two things. And first you have a high priced product, or second you have a product that needs a lot of explanation. And so you have to have a lot of time with your potential client to get to the core value of your service or product.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, great. So one question that I had for you directly, this one seemed like a really easy sale, to be honest. But I wanted to ask you, are all your conversations or most of your conversations that you had, especially in that 1 week where you started 80 and you got 3 calls out of that, and you got like 7 discovery calls, right? Out of those 80, you said. Yeah. So were the conversations that led to the discovery calls, were they all similarly easy?
No and yes. 2 or 3 were just like, hey, I'm Max, let's connect. And they were like, okay, then let's hop on a call. And
really?
That's pure luck. Yeah, that's pure luck. But that happens all the time. I got my first client was exactly that conversation. I was reaching out, was saying, hey, I'm from the publishing industry. I did online marketing and sales. Would be happy to connect. And the first answer was, well, then let's talk. Okay. And on the call, I was like, okay, what's your problem? How can I help? And he was like, yeah, maybe you can help us, sell our publishing or published services and products. So that was my first client actually. So
Wow,
really
very
easy, but that's lucky. But yeah, I think the conversations with Ben Nichols, for example, is a really good example of just reaching out and just wanting to know what's up, and not having a sales pitch in mind. So this conversation didn't start by, oh, I want to sell something to Ben, but it started because of, hey, I have a question, and this was a genuinely honest question. I really wanted to know how he was doing it. And so it was pure luck again, but you have to reach out to get lucky. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was one of the main points that I took away from this. It does seem like a lucky coincidence that you found someone who was talking about an issue that you actually can help with. However, and the secret in good LinkedIn outbound lies in spotting that kind of a context, finding those lucky coincidences and being open to them. And then most importantly, to run the conversation without an agenda. Of course, you have an agenda in the back of your mind. Ultimately, you do want to make a sale, but it's really key that with that individual person, you don't try to convert them unless there is a clearly articulated need. In this case, over the course of the conversation, you found out they only won one client from a webinar out of 60 participants, where there's definitely room for improvement. And that's when you offer the call, because they clearly admitted there's room for improvement.
Yes,
so that
of
is
course.
the thing and sorry if I can just finish that thought. I think on an individual level, you have to be very non-salesy. However, on an aggregate level, or out of those 80 that you are approaching, you should expect a certain number to actually convert, at least into a call, ideally into a client as well. So in aggregate, expect something. On individual level, don't.
100%. So I have an agenda using LinkedIn, but I don't have an agenda with like the individual conversation. Exactly. And I think that's the difference, because most of the time I talk to people, it's like vice versa. They just use LinkedIn and just for fun. And in a conversation, they pitch you just when you accept the connection, for example. And I think this is not the right way. I think you should be open to genuinely good conversation with your potential clients, but not in a way that you see this conversation or the partner you're talking to as a potential client, but as just somebody you want to talk to and find out if there's something you can help with.
Yeah. What I do find really interesting in your case is that you would actually, when somebody sends you a message, hey, let's talk, that you actually accept that. I've had several instances where when I did that and I immediately accepted the conversation, it went nowhere. They were essentially time wasters. And I do think that is indicative. If you somebody connects with you and you instantly jump on the call, I think it's much more likely that you're going to be a time waster than that you actually are serious and so on. Do you never had that issue?
I had that issue, but the most of the time when I get on the call with somebody that approached me. So if I approach somebody through outbound connections and he accepts and wants to jump on a call, I because it's kind of like, because I'm from the publishing industry, and when I add people from the publishing industry, there's a good chance I can help them with their digital marketing, because the company I work with was kind of like the best in online marketing of all publishing companies in Germany. So there's a great chance I have something they don't have. But for example, when a coach or a consultant adds me and wants to jump on a call, that's basically what you said. That's going nowhere, because he just wants to sell me something. And there's
No, I didn't really mean that. It sometimes happens to me that I add someone and then I want to start a normal conversation just like you, but they instantly say, oh, hey, let's talk. Here's my number. And I'm like, it's just weird. It's just, it's just you're jumping several stages in the process.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. But maybe that's because I'm not long enough in business on LinkedIn. So
Okay.
I'm doing
Okay.
this for 5 weeks now, so it's pretty fresh
Yeah.
that I started to use LinkedIn.
Yeah, but
So
but honestly, that is amazing. Like the fact that you got all of this, that you managed to actually make such a smooth sail and you run the conversation really well, right? And by the way, this is not the original wording because the original wording was in German, so you translated it, but I'm sure you
yeah,
translated it correctly. The fact that you're running the
yeah.
conversation in such a nice and smooth way, you're a natural. You really need to push this channel for yourself. You're really good.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Awesome. So let's cover the next conversation. That was one of mine.
Yep.
And in this case, I'm going to read myself and you're going to read the other person. Cool.
Yes.
This other person's name was Michael. And because another contact of mine called Michael shared my video, I started the conversation with, "Hi, Michael. Thanks for the great comment under Michael's share of Michael's video."
You're very welcome. Glad to connect.
The pleasure is all mine. And thank you for your service. Because, by the way, I saw that he was in the military and he's an American. So I said, thank you for your service. I see you're like Elon Musk, running 3 companies. Are you able to manage by also being a genius?
No genies here. Pure ambition and a lot of ADHD. Lol. It's actually all one company with different divisions and brands, so there's only one administration and pretty easy to manage. Departments 1 and 2 are all inbound leads, so I can focus on areas 3 and 4.
Ambition, ADHD, and no coffee? I read your recent post. There must be some genius mixed into that. How can you build all of that without coffee? Anyway, I'm curious to know what has worked best for you in terms of inbound. Articles on LinkedIn, blog, videos. Are you able to track what content drives the clients?
I do have a couple of ways I track different streams of traffic. I mostly rely on content marketing and SEO, along with being in business for over 15 years. Moving into 2021, I'm working on centralizing and simplifying inbound traffic to Google, LinkedIn, and referrals. How about you?
I'm doing LinkedIn organic exclusively. Now that this is predictable, I'm expanding into Facebook ads, but I've had issues with them, constant ad account closures. So I'll also branch out into YouTube. I'll be upfront and ask anything we could help you in terms of LinkedIn. We're pretty good on Outbound, starting friendly, non-spammy conversations. So maybe there's something new to add to your quiver.
I'm doing a lot of research with LinkedIn as I think it has become the place to go for B2B networking for sure. I would be interested in hearing about what your company does. I'd also like to show you some strategies you could use to increase return on your LinkedIn efforts to garner organic search engine presence for profitable keywords.
Cool, let's connect. Can I send you my scheduling link?
Sure.
Cool. So that was this conversation. And what is interesting here is that there was not a clear statement of a problem. Now, sometimes you will run into that where they seem to have all their stuff together, but the conversation flows nicely. He actually responded really well. It was not, the intervals between the conversation were not too long. And so I had a feeling that this is actually really going somewhere, but I couldn't really figure out an angle. And here in this situation, it's really important that you then sometimes you don't stay too long in this exploration mode, because at some point they will get bored. So you have probably something between 6 and 8 or 6 and 10 backs and forths. And once that's done, you need to make the move, right? Because too much conversation, it's gonna burn out, and I've had that many times in the past. So it's a little bit of a Hail Mary that I threw here when I said, I'll be upfront and ask anything we could help you with in terms of LinkedIn, because he mentioned that he does a lot of inbound on LinkedIn. And then I said, well, because you are doing inbound already, we're pretty good on outbound. So this is what I could help you with potentially. All right.
And
so that was something that I sometimes tell my clients, that you need to sometimes just simply throw the ball, and just hope for the best and not sweat it too much, because at some point you have to make the move.
Yeah, and you made the move by not pitching, but just asking nice. And that made all the difference. Because what is really bad is, like, asking just a bunch of questions, hoping for he responds like, oh, I can't do that, or I have a problem with that. So just asking nicely is, I think, the smooth way of just, I'm seeing you're doing great, but is there something I can help you with?
Exactly.
Because you could have gone on and just asking question after question after question. And this gets really annoying if somebody's like digging really deep to find something he can pitch you for or pitch you at. Yeah. So I think just asking nicely is also a great way, because it's not a pitch, but he could have just said, no, I don't want to do that, or you can help me. And that's totally fine. And you just had a good conversation with somebody. And so I think sometimes just, being eager and just asking nicely is a really good way to get out of a situation that seems to go like not in the way you wanted it maybe to,
Yes, correct. But so I agree with you, but the asking nicely, at some point it has to stop, as you correctly pointed out. You have to make the jump at some point. And if you keep digging because you're trying to find some kind of an angle, they will either get upset. I had that in the past when I didn't really know the right balance. And now I kind of almost feel it instinctually. I just know, oh, I'm just overdoing it, So I just already know, okay, now I need to make the move. And if you don't have that, they will, of course, then get upset and annoyed, and the conversation will peter out and they will stop responding at some point. And so if you try to ask too many questions to look for an angle, they will get upset. But also, and you said that correctly, I did ask politely. I said, I'll be upfront and ask, is there anything we could help you with? Because of that, I kind of let my guard down. It was a little bit on the vulnerable side that I said this, I'm willing to kind of throw the Hail Mary. And he reacted quite positively to it because we had built up some solid rapport. And I was asking humbly. Now, what some people do here, and that is also wrong, that is kind of too wrong on the other side, is that they start pitching. And they actually say, well, we could help you with outbound LinkedIn because we have helped so many people and so on, and just kind of do the kind of, we can help you. And that is always very presumptuous because you know very little about that person in that situation, in that scenario. So if you at that point already say, I can help you with XYZ, that is a little bit arrogant. So you always, this is also one of the reasons why I always suggest to people to start offering the call by saying, this sounds like something I might be able to help you with. That's a really good line, because you say it sounds like something and that I might be able to help you with. Would you like to jump on a 15-minute call to explore? It's very non-threatening because you always open the possibility that it might not be something you can help with.
Yeah. So then the call itself gets a really good purpose because you just want to find out if there is something you can help with.
Yeah.
And maybe not, maybe yes, maybe not, but you have to ask. So I think both our conversations have like this same kind of luck because we just did something. We started a conversation and at some point we just asked if there's something we can help with. In my case, it was like, oh, I think I can help you with like your sales pitch or your explanation of your product. Do you want to have a talk? And you were like, you said you're doing quite a lot inbound. I'm doing quite a lot outbound. Maybe there's something I can help you with. What do you think? So it's just like when I meet you on the street and we have a conversation, I wouldn't just pitch you something. I would just ask. So that's something I realize when people are having conversations on LinkedIn, it's sometimes very unnatural. So I always think like it's a friend standing in front of me and just talking like I would talk to a friend. And if I, for example, talk to my friend and I want to find out if he's doing great, for example, I would ask like, hi, how are you doing? What's your problem? How can I help you with? I mean, in the business world, I'm not like saying how are you doing, but on another level, I would say like, what do you want to achieve? What's your goal this year? Maybe I can help you with XYZ, like I would do it with my friend, but just on a business level.
Absolutely. And I love this analogy with how you talk to a friend, because that's exactly right. You would probably not kind of, no, you would still explore whether they have a problem, and then you would offer a solution. Most likely the solution would not be with a kind of monetary background, but still you would kind of be exploring and then say, well, you know what, let's just have a quick, or let's go for coffee, because it sounds like something that you might need to talk through.
Yeah, you would offer help.
Exactly, you offer help, and that is exactly the right mindset to have for these things. However, I do have to say one important thing on when you said you want to ask if you can help. There's also a wrong way to do this if you say that too early. And this is something that is like a soft pitch slap on LinkedIn when you connect with someone and they ask you, hey, is there something in video production we can help you with? It's too early. You have not built up a connection with me. You have not really asked me at all if I do video, if I have anything that needs done in the space of video. You just essentially are trying to talk to as many people as possible, and you probably have automated that message anyway. So you are not really building a relationship here. You are just, instead of a hard pitch slap where you say, hey, we can do this, let's jump on a 15-minute call right out of the gate. Yeah, that's a hard pitch slap. And the soft pitch slap is, hey, we do video editing. Do you need any help with that?
Yeah, but you had a good reason, because he was like explicitly saying, I'm doing a lot of inbound and you're doing a lot of outbound. So it's worth a question.
Exactly. So looking for those complementarities, looking for if they, in your case, he had a clear problem, so you were able to immediately go for the offer. In my case, he didn't state a problem, but I saw that he's very solid on one aspect of what I do. We also do inbound quite strongly, but also we do outbound. We do both pretty equally. We give them equal weight. So I'm saying, well, if you do inbound really well, then how about let's talk about outbound? Yeah. And so that's another complementarity. Cool. Definitely. All right. So great. So let's stop screen sharing here. That was really, really interesting. Thank you, Max, for this. Are there any questions from the audience? Ronaldo?
No, it was very good. No question. Really like to see the way you guys talk to your prospects and customers.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Any other question, Ronaldo, about any other aspects of LinkedIn client acquisition?
I think it was quite good. I was no questions.
No problem at all. No problem. Good. Okay, so we have a few questions that have come in via the messaging. Max, I'm not sharing my screen anymore, so you can just, if you can also look into that document that I shared.
Yeah, sure.
We can look at those two things. So before we get into the question, there's one important topic that that moved me in the last couple of days. So I wanted to briefly talk about that. And Max, do you have kids?
No,
you
not
don't.
Yet.
Okay. So this was something that is now really close to my heart, because we had a baby 6.5 months ago. And so I've had many people who tell me, you should use your son in your ads or in your content and so on. You're going to get so much love, so many likes, so many comments and so on. You're going to make a lot of money with him. And I discussed this with my wife. How do we want our son to grow up as far as social media is concerned? And both of us, and that's quite ironic, although we are both essentially, our businesses are on social media. She's a fitness coach and I do what I do. So of course we're very I don't want to say dependent, but it's true. We are dependent on social media and this is kind of our livelihood. But from a personal standpoint, we believe that it's generally the drawbacks are stronger than the advantages of social media. So Facebook makes you depressed, makes you lonely, makes you compare yourself with others. So we want to have as little social media in our lives as possible beyond what we need to do and so on. So we were thinking in terms of our son, how we're going to raise him. And for us, it's a matter of principle that social media is generally quite bad, especially for kids. And so that's one aspect of it. And the reason why we talked about this in the first place was because I saw a woman on LinkedIn who really blatantly used her 2-year-old to glorify herself. And the narrative of her post was something like, that her son tells her how amazing she is as a mommy, while at the same time she's also killing it in business, right? And so it was like she was self-glorifying and like using a video of her 2-year-old son where he was saying, "Oh, mommy, you're so great," and so on. And I found it really distasteful and thought that it's like, from a human dignity standpoint, it's like, this is a complete person. He just happens to be 2 years old and he's being paraded around on social media without consent for the express purpose that she gain more followers and therefore more business. So there was a second thought that I found it disrespectful towards a child to use him without his consent. And then on a personal point also, I have a lot of friends whose voices I keep hearing in my head of how they would disapprove generally of social media. And so that's another element in the mix. And then finally, I was thinking also that if you do this, you are introducing noise into your message. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when people are posting child pictures and so on, this is not something that will attract actually your decision makers. It will attract generally the population, but you are therefore introducing noise into the algorithm, because suddenly completely unrelated people who don't really care about your business will suddenly flock in to like your content. And therefore you will introduce noise into the algorithm. LinkedIn will think that these people who liked your baby or child stuff will suddenly be interested in more of what you say, and then will show your content to them. They will then not like, because they don't care about your professional content, and your overall algorithm imprint will suffer. So just a couple of thoughts on the topic of using children and generally unrelated stuff in order to further your business. So I may be quite too much of a purist in this regard, but anyway, those are just my thoughts on the baby stuff. Any thoughts?
I totally agree with basically everything you said, because I think if you get clients by showing your baby or your children, you get the wrong clients, because and you have to be good enough to not show your children on social media, because like I said, like if you have to show your children on pictures and videos, you have a big problem, because it basically says you don't have enough clients to just be professional. And I think you get the wrong clients, but if you only attract them by showing your baby or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's not a business thing to do, to show children in posts. You can do this with your like WhatsApp group when you send your mother a picture of your child. That's totally fine. You can do that, and maybe you can post a photo on Instagram. That's totally fine as well. But I think it's not something you should post in a business-related way on LinkedIn.
And I have to say, so I agree, but what I do have to say, in order to not be misunderstood, I think it's okay to show a little bit of your personal side. Like I have, for example, when we talk about, let's say at least living creatures, we have a dog, and I'm parading our dog around on our website, right? And I really think that, of course, there's a fundamental difference between a child and a dog. That's one thing. And I do think that it's perfectly okay to show yourself a little bit from the personal side. I don't see that as a problem whatsoever. But this aspect of using a human being to further your business agenda, it just tastes a little bit iffy to me.
If it's just funny, it's okay. But if you use it to get more clients, it's the wrong way.
Exactly. I agree. Cool. Okay. So let's get into some of the questions that were submitted beforehand. So Hannah asks, is there a recommended date and time to post on LinkedIn? I find that I get next to no engagement on weekends. So a couple of thoughts on this. I have had bad and good engagement on any day. And I think it's really about the quality of the content. If you look at the entire universe of what creates engagement, what gets the right people interested in it, it's like 99, if not 100%, it's about the quality of the content and whether it's perfectly tailored for your target audience, whether it uses that language, whether it kind of treats topics that are problems, that are representing problems for them. And timing is pretty much secondary. Yes, you probably should not, if you're selling to a specific time zone, You should not be posting in the middle of the night for them, of course. And so for that, I would recommend that if you post once a day, it should probably be at some point in the morning so that you can take advantage of most of the rest of the day. But really, the question is, it shows me a little bit that you are, if I may say so, focused on the wrong things. And I did have a look at your content, Hannah, that you submitted, and because we're on first name basis only here, I'm going to humbly say that your posts are kind of not following best practices for LinkedIn marketing, for inbound. For example, you were posting a few pictures of where you're celebrating your team. You were also sharing news articles. And that is, first of all, celebrating your team is very good if you do it once in a while. But if otherwise you don't really share much content, then you emphasizing your products or your team or your company is generally the wrong thing to do, because it's just very self-centered and people don't care about that. They care about what you can do for them. And therefore, this type of content tends to land quite flat. And then with sharing news articles is not good, because LinkedIn is punishing any post that has in the body a link to the outside world. So they don't want people to leave the platform. So if you share a news article that if people click on it, they leave LinkedIn, LinkedIn will artificially prevent its reach and will decrease its reach, right? So that is what's happening. So any thoughts on this, Max?
Yes, I saw some posts in the last couple of days that said Sundays should be great as well, but because I'm not the greatest content publisher and poster on LinkedIn, that's just something I saw on others posts or other posts. But another thing to the news posts, if there's really something great going on and you want to share the news, then just like wrap it up in your own words and put some statements of your own to it. So take the piece of news, put it in your post with your own opinion, with some thoughts to spice up the news, and not just posting a link.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes, I agree. But in that case, I would make this the main topic of your post. And then say in the post, in case you're interested in the news story, the link is going to be in the first comment.
Yes,
because it seems to be that LinkedIn is not suppressing those kind of posts if you post a link in the comments. So if you really have to share something about the news and you want to link to it, by all means do it. But just one word on anything that is curating others, curating other content sources. I've seen this work less and less over the years, that whenever, even if you give your own view on the news, and that is your main story, I think that's not enough. You need to have original thoughts. You need to have your own brand. If all you do is commenting on third-party sources, I think that is not going to serve you well in the long run. So it's okay if you do it once in a while, but the main dish on LinkedIn should be your written content and your and videos. Cool. Good. All right. Should we go to the next question?
Yes, please.
Gabriel says, I'm about to focus on my course and group coaching program, and I plan to go all in on that. Should I focus my entire messaging on that course, or also continue advertising my done for you work? So how about you start off that one, Max?
Yes. I would say if you can afford to focus on advertising your course and group coaching program, you should definitely do that, because if it is like a focus project for you, you should focus your messaging on this topic as well, because that's something. Because if you want to focus on a project and you want to advertise it, you should focus the messaging as well. To get the most of it, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you want to do the transition.
Mm-hmm. So one thought I had here, and maybe this is worthwhile that we explain the context to the listeners. There are two ways. When you are a consultant, there are two ways how you can scale a business. One is you build an agency, meaning you hire other people, you train them on your method, and they then execute on your behalf for the client. That's one way. And you can roughly, in terms of the business model, you can always assume that for every 100,000 that you're adding to your revenue, you're adding one new person. So this means if you want to have a $1 million business, let's say, you'll probably end up with having somewhere between 8 and 10 employees, roughly. And so that is the standard agency model. The other way is that you, instead of hiring other people to do the work for the client, you actually turn into a model where the client does the work for themselves. And this is actually my model that I pursue. I have a course in a group coaching program where I teach people how to get clients on LinkedIn. I was actually in a place in 2019 where I was thinking, should I build an agency? And instead, I opted for growing the course and group coaching side, because I prefer to scale without needing too many team members, too many employees. So just to give that context, it is quite a different model. It requires a different setup. And ideally, you should not pursue both at the same time. Now, Gabriel is asking whether he should go all in on that. And so my main question is, and you correctly pointed that out, Max, that if you can afford it, then you definitely should only go for only for one thing, namely for the course and group coaching program. However, and this is important to emphasize, if the overlap of those two audiences, one is the client who needs the done for you service, and the other one is the client who needs the course and group coaching program. If that overlap is sufficiently large, then you can simply just advertise it generally, advertise the service, and then on the call with the prospect, you just inquire, and depending on your cash needs, if you just need to get some cash through the door, if you feel that they would be a done for you client, and you could really use the money at this point, which is the case of many consultants when they are transitioning, then you can still offer them the done for you service. And for that, it's quite useful if you keep the messaging a little bit ambiguous. You just describe what result you help the client to achieve, and then the how you do it, you just leave it for the sales call. Okay, so that is the situation. It's a little bit more complex than only saying if you can afford it. But I think it's important to emphasize this. If you can really afford it, and you can say, okay, it's an innovative product. I don't really know where I'm going to take this course and group coaching program. Maybe I'll have to pivot. Maybe I'll have to tweak it. Well, if you have, let's say, a year run rate, and you're perfectly fine with experimenting around it, and you find if you get one client in 3 months and another client in 5 months, then definitely you should do that, and you should forego those done for you clients because they take up a lot of your time. So if you can afford it, indeed, go for the course and group coaching program only.
There could be another option. You can sell them your course and offer like an upsell or done for you service, because I guess the done for you is a bit more expensive. So you could sell them your group coaching and then upsell on the done for you.
That's great. That's a great idea. Exactly. You could do that. Or you could simply have a couple of elements of the service where, for example, if in my world, I could say that I do basically, it's the course and the group coaching program, but I also have a team of people who are doing the outreach on the client's behalf. Some really switched on freelancers who can do this well, and they just log in as the client and just do that work for them. All right, so that is an option, and that would be a hybrid of a course and group coaching, including a done for you model in there. So very much along those lines. Cool, good stuff. And then final question. So Chris says, I had a sales call recently, which I felt was going very well. Then we got to discussing the investment. Following your advice, I offered an action taker discount, and the prospect reacted upset, saying that I was trying to pressure him into buying. I'm thinking that I should hold off and stop using the method, as I think that cost me a sale. Okay, so that also needs some context. I suggest to people that they offer what I call an action taker discount when you have a client on the phone. And this works and it really depends on the demographic. Like if you have a large corporate, for example, then obviously that won't work, because no large corporate makes a decision on just one call. Those tend to be higher ticket figures. So there you operate within a totally different market. However, the smaller your client is, the more you can use the action taker discount as an incentive. And now this is really important to effectively, you are selling your product at the action taker discount. This is usually what it boils down to. What the action taker discount is really useful for is to avoid chasing the client, is to invite them to make a decision soon so that you can avoid the chasing after them after the fact. So for example, let's say you want to sell your product at 5,000 and you say, okay, normally the price is 7,500. That's anytime you come to me, this is the price at which it's going to be sold. However, if you're ready to make a decision today, it's going to be 5,000. Okay. So that is what Chris probably did. He says that he offered the action taker discount and the client and the prospect reacted upset. I had that too. Several times this happened to me and I learned from it. And so this is what I did, Chris, and I hope this is useful to you. If you feel on the call that the client is a little bit, shall we say, on the difficult side, right? If they are a little bit, it feels a little bit like a struggle, in the end you get there, but it's never truly harmonious. Then I suggest you use the following wording, that you say that the price is 7,500. However, I do also offer a reduced price for people who are ready to decide on the call or on the day of the call. And then you don't offer the price immediately. You just say, is this something that you would be willing to consider to make a decision today, or would you need more time? And only then, if they say that they are interested to hear the price, then you tell them. But with this, the dynamic has changed because you now have made it their decision whether they want to hear the price. And then they cannot say anymore that you're trying to pressure them into something, or at least, they still could say it, but you have a much better defense than to say, listen, the price is 7,500, right? I was only asking if you're willing to decide today. No problem at all. Take all your time and we can talk, tell me in a week's time. It's just that, and you can then always justify it by saying, I just know that, and based on my experience, people who take decisions quickly tend to be the most successful clients, which, by the way, is absolutely true. It's really true. I've seen this in my world. My by far most successful client, who got a client within 2 weeks of working with me, decided like this. Like between me contacting her and her paying and being in the program, it was less than a week. Right. So we chatted. Next day, we on a quick call. 3 days later, we are on a long call. She decides on the call and pays, ready to go. And she got herself a client 2 weeks later. So it really is true. You can absolutely use this. People who decide quickly tend to be the best clients. And because you want to incentivize that, you're offering the action taker discount. Now, it's important also to note that if the prospect reacted in this way, it's probably also their problem. So I would not put the blame squarely on you, Chris. I think you, next time you do this, maybe be a little bit more cautious and ask them. And I suggested you do what I suggested now, that you simply ask them, would you like to hear the other price? But also don't be worried if they then start to be a little bit unfriendly and say, oh, you're trying to pressure me or something like that. Because it's them who might be thinking a little bit in the glass is half empty kind of way. Because ultimately, it's not you're trying to pressure them. You're just offering them a discount if they sign up now. Right? So especially in products that are, I would say, in the range of somewhere between the 3,000 to 15,000 mark, there it works really, really well. And you can just avoid this, oh, John, so have you thought about my offer? Should we do this? And so on, this constant, oh, get back to me in a month and so on, this kind of stuff. You can just avoid that. And just by saying, okay, it's on the day, it's going to be 5,000. Otherwise, it's 7,500. Cool. Any thoughts on this, Max?
Yeah, sure. So I think my opinion is a bit different because in my opinion, offering discounts is only useful when the budget or the price is actually a problem. And I guess, Chris, that in the moment you offer the action taker discount, you didn't really know if there's a problem with budget or price. So my suggestion for you would be maybe try asking the next time you are discussing an investment, what would it take for you and I to do business today? Because if you ask this particular question, you get to the point of the actual problem. Maybe it's price, maybe it's budget, maybe it's time, maybe you have to offer a guarantee, maybe you have to give out some proof or testimonials because there's a trust problem, because you never know what is actually the problem. And if the person then responds like, I'm not quite sure, then you can say, okay, if you're willing to decide today, I can give you an action taker discount, because it's like, I'm not quite sure, and you maybe want to like emphasize on making this a decision right now. But maybe it's like, I'm not quite sure because I want to see some testimonials. I'm not quite sure if the product or service works, or I don't have a big budget, or I actually need some time because XYZ. And if you ask just like, what would it take for you and I to do the business today? The answer is the actual problem, and you can respond directly to that.
That's a very interesting solution. Don't you think that you are putting too much control into the prospect's hands at this point?
Not really, because like most of the time they actually respond in an honest way. And I can remember like 6 months ago, I had a client or potential client, and he was like, I really like what you're doing. I want to become your client. But let's, and he was like, I don't know. And I said like, what would it take for you and I to do business today? And he was like, I'm not on a big budget, so let's make a payment plan. And he offered the solution for me, so I can say, okay, then let's do a payment plan, because it was not about the price, but because he was not on a big budget. It wouldn't have made a difference if I had sent like, okay, then I can give you like a 10% discount. It wouldn't made a difference. So the difference was he had not much money, so he needed a payment plan. So he offered the solution to become my client. Instead of me saying, okay, you have to decide now, you can get like 15% off. Instead, it was like a payment plan. I could offer in this particular situation.
Really interesting. Would you say this applies after you state the normal price or even before? So you kind of agree, okay, you want to work together. This sounds great. You want to do this, John? Yeah, totally. I would like to do this. And then you get to the topic of price. Would you ask this question before you state the price or after?
I think both is fine, because it's all about like, if you want to have a client or a potential client to make a decision right now, I think it's totally fine to ask, what does it take to make a decision right now? And the response is something you can actually respond to in a way like a discount, a testimonial, a story, a success story, some proof, a payment plan, something that helps the client make a decision right now. So I think this is a really powerful question.
Interesting. That's really cool. I'm going to try this. I'm always very keen to try new techniques, and this is something I haven't come across yet, because ultimately you do want to, it's a collaborative sale. It's a consultative sale that you do. You want to build long-term relationships. So if you open yourself to the possibilities of doing business in all kinds of possible ways, then I think this could actually work. So thank you for this. Thank you for this piece of advice. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because in the past, I found out that like actually the higher the price, the better the results. So actually, if it's like 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 euros or dollars, it doesn't make a difference. So if somebody is willing to invest $5,000 into a course, it's no problem to invest $6,900 into a course. That doesn't make a difference. But what makes a difference is something the client has on, maybe it's a budget, maybe it's a payment plan, maybe it's some time, you prove, whatever. But most of the time, it's not the price itself.
That's really interesting. And I mean, 100% agree with you. This is why I went from low ticket to high ticket and never looked back, because it's just such a, you get way better clients with that, right? When you go high ticket, because you really see that people want to solve this problem that they have and they're committed. And by them paying a significant amount, they are really stating, hey, I'm willing to make this big sacrifice, especially when you're working with solo consultants like I do, solo consultant coaches and small B2B companies for whom, it is a considerable investment. That is something that you want to always keep in mind, that the bigger people, the bigger the prices, the higher the prices, the more committed people will really be.
Yeah, and sometimes you can just take it a step further. For example, if you have a webinar funnel, a paid funnel, or for example, in my webinar funnel, I only offer calls within 3 days after the webinar. So if somebody is not willing to have a call with me within 3 days, he will not become my client. Because I only want to work with people that are willing to take action right now, because they see they have a problem and they want to do something about it. So I really take it a step further to like force them into a call or not, but that's fine if they don't want to take action, but I only want people who are willing to take action. So I don't offer an action taker discount, but I say, you only can work with me if you're willing to take action right now.
Okay, so would you, if they indicate that, no, they just want to hear about your offer and so on, but they're not in a position to decide now, do you then reject the call?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on how much work I have on my table, to be honest. So if I can take one or two clients and I just want to spread like my offer because somebody's asking, I'm totally willing to talk about my offer, but I would not give away a price. I would just talk about the offer itself, but no pricing, because pricing is because it is all about the goal you want to have. Like, how can I say this? So it's all about what comes out of your service. Like, it's all about the success of your service. If you have a client, it's all about the success. So it's not about the price. So I would talk about the offer, but not about the price.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. I do find it quite difficult when I'm on the call with somebody and they've kind of indicated that they're not ready to move yet, to then give them all the information about the offer. But then when they ask, and they always will ask, so how much does it cost, to then say, I'm not going to tell you. How do you react to that when they ask that? What do you say?
I would ask, like, what do you think is it worth?
Really?
Yeah, sure. Why not? That's a question I ask all the time.
Wow, that is so
because
like never do that.
Because, for example, I have one client, and I'm consulting in digital marketing. We're doing a digital sales funnel with paid ads and stuff. And I was like, I'm not guarantee you the success of our relationship. But if we do this and that, what is it worth to you? Yeah. So I get a feeling of how can I price it? And if he's like, well, maybe 18,000 euros, I'm like, hey, well, I have a good deal for you. It's only 12.
And in reality, you were selling it at 5.
Yeah. And if he says like, just 3.9, then I would say, actually, I'm right about 16,000. Let's meet at half. Yeah. So price, I don't have fixed prices. I have prices based on what the customer is expecting, and pricing the expectation. Yeah. The possible outcomes.
And wait, but for what kind of service? Is it a completely custom bespoke service that you offer then?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I would have a hard time doing that, because I essentially have a course and group coaching program. And if I were to charge one person 5,000, the next person 12,000. At some point,
Yeah.
word would get out, and I think
that's not
clients
working.
would get upset. That's not
true.
possible.
That wouldn't work.
Yeah.
That wouldn't work because that's just unfair.
Cool. Yeah.
Because you're saying the same thing for different prices.
Yeah, exactly.
But in my case, if it's highly individual, so I can like make individual prices, and I base my price on the possible outcomes and on the expectation of the client.
Absolutely. And you don't want to, it's not like you are, I think it's important to emphasize this. When you sell something that you originally planned to sell for 5K, and they indicate that this is worth 18K to them, you then do deliver the actual work that is worth 18K, right? As an ethical business person, you don't provide a 5K service for something that you charged 18K for. Like I would then pack my program with extra bonus sessions. I would come up with specific tailor-made training for that kind of person, and so on, right? If I sold at a triple the price that, but I think that's a really great point of inspiration here, where you can really take things far wider if you ask your prospects, how much is this worth to you? That's a really interesting thought. And we just got Mike Francesca on the call. Mike, if you unmuted yourself, you're a sales pro. What do you think about asking people how much a product or service is worth to them? Is this something you've ever done?
Hey, Michael. For me, I've not actually done that. I don't have as much flexibility as he does, as my product is similar to yours in that it's going to be, my devices in the hospital and headbands. I have a little bit of leeway. I think actually it might work just to spark conversation. Actually, if I ask them what would the service be worth to you to have 24/7 coverage and not have to hire extra personnel and get expensive equipment. I think that it actually might be a really good lead to kind of offset that cost question and just get into discussion to get more information out of the prospect.
Yeah, interesting. And this is also something you could then feed back into marketing or to even product development, so that, hey, this client told me it would be worth 4 times than what we sell it at. Let's make sure that we have a product for this type of client.
Yes,
that's right. That's right.
Cool.
One thing that I do say often, instead of answering that cost question, would be to kind of put it back on them. And in my field, if they were not to use my product, they would have to spend a ton more money to actually achieve the same results that I would be giving them. So I sometimes would put that out to them and say, well, let's back up here. And if you were to achieve these same results, you would need to hire X amount of people, X amount of machines. You would end up spending $200,000 to $300,000 to achieve this result. With us, A, B, and C.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much, Mike. You just came on. Do you have any questions as far as LinkedIn is concerned? Any content, social selling related question?
No, I just been listening to you guys. I mean, the hardest thing for me early on is to bridge that gap from face-to-face selling to LinkedIn selling. As we've discussed, it's a different ball game, and I'm just getting used to the nuances of the initial message to somebody once they connect, to start that conversation and not be salesy. Yeah. And just to stop myself from trying to sell them.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all I was going to say.
Okay. No, so you came in about 10 or 15 minutes ago. This was actually the topic we were covering with Max at the beginning of the show. So you definitely, I think you will get some value out of re-listening. It's going to be on YouTube and on Spotify, on the platforms a little bit later, but on these two you can listen and watch. I think you might find a little bit of value in there, because we went through our most recent conversations with prospects where we exactly covered that point. How can you start a conversation without being salesy, but also without wasting time and going for a virtual coffee or anything like that?
Very cool. I'll listen to that. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Well, Max, thank you so much. This was so insightful. I learned so much from you here. Where can people learn more about you and what you do and how you can help them?
Just DM me on LinkedIn, for example, or if you want to find out more about me and my business and maybe about some backstories, just visit www.maximiliansaal.com. So just basically my name.com and but I would prefer just to DM me, just have a talk, have a conversation.
Exactly, because as we've seen, you're very good at them.
No agenda here, no agenda.
Awesome. Great. Max, thank you very much. Mike,
thanks for having me.
You again, and you'll hear from me next week.
Sounds great. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mike. Bye-bye.
Bye. The State of Client Acquisition is a Content 360 production. Music by Gavin Knox-Grant. To sign up for alerts and to submit written and audio questions, go to stateofclientacquisition.com. Unless I announce it otherwise, the live podcast is recorded on Wednesdays each week at 7 p.m. Central European Time. That's 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 10 a.m. Pacific. And you can always join by going to www.talktomichael.com. That's Michael without an E. But if you sign up at the podcast page, you'll get the link in an email each week. I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Infinite numbers, rapid fire across the country.